Good evening. I'd like to thank you all for coming. My name is Marjorie Hunter, and I am the program administrator for the Sensory Learning Program and also the Vision Improvement Program. I have a bachelor's degree in education, and I was a teacher for several years. And I began working for Dr. Schmakel about 16 years ago as a vision therapist in his Vision Improvement Program. This program is a cognitive approach to help create new neural pathways in the brain to allow the eyes to work together more efficiently and eliminate issues with tracking, focusing, and turning the eyes in for near tasks. The children and adults that we work with have issues with learning and behavior, and although they have average or above average intelligence, many times they've been diagnosed with attention issues such as ADD or ADHD. Now, Dr. Schmakel has had amazing success with the vision therapy program, but felt that he was not able to reach a certain segment of the population because of their inability to handle such a cognitive type approach to therapy. At a conference for optometrists, he was introduced to the Sensory Learning Program, a program that was developed about 15 years ago, and he knew that this was the answer that he had been looking for. Later in the presentation, you'll hear about a boy that solidified Dr. Schmakel's decision to bring the Sensory Learning Program to Toledo. We are one of 31 centers throughout the nation and have been open since September of 2008. At this point, we have worked with close to 100 children and adults, and the success that we have seen is just amazing. So, to give you a little background on Dr. Schmakel, he received his doctorate of optometry degree cum laude from OSU, where he was class president and commencement speaker at graduation. Early in his career, he was the first ever to fit an infant born with cataracts with a silicone lens that allowed the child to be able to see for the first time. He's a member of and continues his education with numerous professional organizations such as the American Optometric Association, the College of Optometrist and Vision Development, National Eye Research Foundation, the Autism Society of Northwest Ohio, Great Lakes Center for Autism, Bittersweet Farms, and Project I Am. He also donates eye exams to Prevent Blindness Ohio and the Infancy Program. And as a side note, I'd like to add that up until his purchase of the Sensory Learning Program, Dr. Schmakel was seriously considering retiring. I know that the families that he has helped already are very thankful that this was not the case, and so are we. I'd like to present Dr. Schmakel, who is going to explain the Sensory Learning Program.
Thank you all for coming. I'm Dr. Schmakel, and I'd like to introduce to you the Sensory Learning Program. The Sensory Learning Program was created by Mary Bowles. She's an expert on the effect of ocular light therapy on learning disabilities. Mary's a pioneer in the integrated use of sound, light, and motion for sensory perception problems. Like many pioneers, Mrs. Bowles began her quest looking for a way to help her son, who as a child was exhibiting behaviors consistent with children on the autism spectrum. That's how it started. Her innovative work in the integration of light, sound, and motion to help a wide range of developmental delays resulted in the creation and development of the Sensory Learning Program. Tonight's presentation has been designed to help you answer three big questions. What is the Sensory Learning Program? What are parents and professionals saying about the program? And is my child or client a good candidate for the program? We hope these questions are answered for you during the presentation. We've also set aside time for additional questions and answers at the conclusion of the presentation, and my staff and I will be available to speak with you after the presentation if you have got a particular question you'd like to speak with us about. We'd like to open tonight's presentation with a news clip featuring the story of a child that went through the Sensory Learning Program that was broadcast in Detroit on ABC.
When a child has autism, a parent is willing to go anywhere and try anything to get help. But thanks to the persistence of one local family, a new breakthrough treatment has just come to Michigan. Action News Health Team reporter Joanne Purton is here now with more. Joanne?
Frank, this treatment combines 3 individual therapies into one, and it's showing promise not just for autism, but for kids with learning disabilities, attention deficit disorder, and developmental delays. The results can be remarkable, as you're about to see in the case of Eric Callahan.
Playtime. Okay, this video starts out with a temper tantrum. Every day when we would turn the TV off, it was a disaster. Life was about how much TV we could watch. So every day it was like this.
This behavior is not unusual for kids with autism. Neither is Eric's hand flapping or walking on his toes.
The overload of sensory input is too confusing for them to handle, so they'll actually be able to flap in order to concentrate on the flapping to calm themselves down.
They're called sensory problems.
They cannot multitask, so when they're looking at something, it's almost as if they're deaf and can't hear because they suppress or turn off their auditory system.
I'm up in the TV and I don't know where you are, Mom, and I don't care.
Desperate for help, Renee and Eric flew to Colorado, where a new program called Sensory Learning is offered. Renee captured the therapy in her video diary. Twice a day for 12 days, Eric's senses were inundated. A lot goes on at one time. The patient's head goes here underneath a light box. They also wear headphones with music playing, and then the table begins to move.
We're stimulating the brain stem in 3 different areas all at the same time. All 3 systems being stimulated at the same time, so the patient has to develop coordination and put them in sync with one another.
Just 6 days into the therapy, Renee saw a little boy she could hardly believe was hers.
You can see he's sitting down watching TV, which was amazing to me because he was hand flapping from the age of 14 months old. I was walking on air. I was thrilled. I was the happiest woman in the world. I was ecstatic.
Even the tantrums have gone away.
Before, you saw the tantrum over no TV. He turned it off on his own and he wants me to read him a book.
Eric improved so much with the treatment that Dr. Brad Habermill brought the technology to Michigan to his office in Flint so families here could be helped.
This by no means is a cure of autism, but it's a very positive intervention that's helping these kids to be able to learn cognitively in a way that they've never been able to before.
Oh, wow! Eric's mom and dad say he's also become much more verbal. They call sensory learning just one piece of the puzzle, but it's a piece that's opening up a whole new world for this little boy.
Thank you.
As a footnote to this story here, I'm happy to add that 8 months after Eric completed the sensory learning program, his doctor lifted the diagnosis of autism. Eric is now, for the first time ever, completely mainstreamed in school and continues to do wonderfully. Of course, every story is not as dramatic or profound as Eric's. They do happen. But most often the gains are more subtle. They're still very meaningful, however, especially to parents. Tonight you'll hear from a parent of a child who's gone through the program who will share their stories and experiences with the sensory learning program with you. So now I'd like to take you for a short tour inside the Sensory Learning Institute in Boulder, Colorado, where Mary Bowles, the founder, will provide us with an overview of the sensory learning program.
Hello. Hi. Hi. The Sensory Learning Program is a supramodal approach to developmental learning which unites 3 modalities, the auditory, the visual, and the vestibular, into one sensory learning experience.
When you hear this sound, you say yes, okay?
The Sensory Learning Program is a 30-day intervention. The first day we evaluate the visual and the auditory, and we do a sample session. Then the very next day we started on the 12 consecutive days of sessions, a half-hour session in the morning and a half-hour session in the afternoon, and then that is followed at home with an 18-day home program that involves just the light.
So, what is the sensory learning program and how does it work? Simply, the sensory learning program is simultaneously stimulating the visual, the auditory, and the vestibular systems with light, sound, and motion. Sight, hearing, and balance do not work independently, as this next clip will show.
The visual and vestibular systems are engaged by sensory inputs of light and motion. The auditory system is engaged by language and sound. When there is a breakdown in communication between these three sensory systems, developmental delays may be present. The goal and focus of the sensory learning program is to enable the central nervous system to better process sensory information. The sensory learning program simultaneously stimulates the visual, auditory, and vestibular systems with light, sound, and motion. By challenging these three sensory systems to work together and adapt to multisensory input, this intervention often improves speech, perception, understanding, social interaction, coordinated movement, and the ability to learn.
I don't know if you get a picture of what's happening, but I like to use my hand here and my arm as excuse me? Oh, good. As the brain stem here. See how it kind of overlaps there? And then this goes down to the spinal cord. So this is, above here is the thalamus and the hypothalamus and the thalamus, and below here is the area of the pons, and it goes into the spinal cord. But interestingly enough, there's two bumps here on the superior colliculus. I don't know if you can catch this or not. When light comes into the eyes, it doesn't all go back to the visual cortex in the brain back here, but 20% of it actually connects into the center of the brain, into these little areas called the superior colliculi. And from there, it goes behind the brainstem into the pineal gland. What's the pineal gland? Well, that's the part of the brain that tells us whether it's daytime or nighttime. Also, the energy from light goes in front of the brainstem into the pituitary gland. What does the pituitary gland do? Well, the pituitary gland controls all of the automatic functions of the body. It's called the autonomic nervous system. This is how it works. When red light, well, think about this. When you wave a red flag in front of a bull, how many of you have done that? No response. No one. What happens is the bull charges. Well, why does the bull charge? If you wave a blue flag in front of a bull, does he charge? No. If you just wave any sort of white flag, surrender, does he charge? No. What happens is when the red color from the flag impinges on the superior colliculi, it goes to the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland then secretes or causes the adrenal cortex to secrete epinephrine, adrenaline. And what does that do to the body? It causes the fight or flight response. The charging of the bull, it causes, if you're up close enough to the bull, you can tell the pupil of the bull gets large, and his focusing is for distance, the matador that he wants to impale his horns upon. What happens in the human being is the same thing. When red light stimulates the adrenal cortex, the pupil gets big, which is interesting. The focus goes to distance, which is very difficult to do close-up work. And what's the third thing? You're all charged up. You want to go after somebody, okay? So this is the response to the red light. When blue light comes into the eye, the violet light, what happens? It goes in here, it goes to the pituitary gland, and that secretes all the neurotransmitters that are responsible for relaxation, digestion, like acetylcholine, rebuilding of the body, okay, that we take in a relaxed state. So it's interesting that the red color stimulates the fight or flight, and the blue stimulates the relaxation. Following? Does that make sense? Okay, so what happens also, the blue causes the eyes to turn in, which is important when you're doing reading. You can't read with the eyes turned out very well. And it causes the focus of the eye to be very flexible, so you can see things at any distance, but most importantly, comfortably up close. And the pupil becomes smaller automatically because of the violet light, so you can see things at different distances without too much of a problem. Does that make sense? Okay? All right. So I wanted you to get a picture of that in your mind of what's going on here. And when light impinges here on the superior colliculi, where do you think the information from auditory and motion comes in? It comes in just below it. Within a half of an inch, all the information from auditory and vestibular balance come into the same point. They come through the same 8th cranial nerve from the auditory. It's the same fluid that flows through the cochlea in the ear for hearing, and those hair cells that cause us to hear different sounds and different pitches, that flows through the balance system, the vestibular. Have you ever seen the 3 semicircular canals, the 1, the 2, and the 3? One's horizontal, one's vertical, horizontal, and oblique. Well, that's the same fluid that flows over these stone cells in the labyrinth, that goes through the cochlea for hearing, that the impulses travel through the same nerve into the brainstem just below vision. So all these things happen in the center of our brain, and if they're not connected properly and have enough future connections, then we have all these sensory issues. Are you starting to understand that somewhat? Okay? Somewhere along the line, someone will ask, well, why does this happen? How can this occur? Well, there's a lot of different reasons. You can have a genetic predisposition. Something in your DNA causes before birth these connections not to take place in the right way in the brainstem. Or in the womb, when before the birth occurs in the mother, there may be an injury for whatever reason, nutritional, physical. During the birth process, there can be an injury because you need just the right amount of pressure during the birth process for all these connections to connect together. They're not connected in the womb. They're connected together physically in the most part during the birth process. So if there's too much pressure, if the delivery lasts labor and delivery lasts a long time, too much pressure here, there can be problems in the brainstem. And also if there's too little pressure, like a cesarean section, how much pressure is there? There's no pressure. So I'm not saying every child that's born cesarean is going to have sensory issues, but many times we have many more now than we used to. I'm not implicating anything. And then after birth, there can be all sorts of ways that the child's head can be injured. Or as an adult, post-traumatic stress disorder causes these connections to be disrupted, and that's why the sensory learning program can help in those individuals as well. Any questions there? Let's use this block as depicting the visual, let's say, okay? This is the visual in the brainstem. And the connection, let's say this is the auditory connection on top, and then this is the vestibular. I kind of made it round so it's like balance, okay? I just made that up. If these are all like wired together and tight, all the connections between the 3 systems are perfect, then there's no problem. And this is the way life, the Creator designed us to be. But if the connections are not there, then everything can like be wobbly and fall apart. This is where you get the child with the meltdowns and all sorts of, just a sound that you would think, what is that? You don't even hear it. It's the train going by